All right, so good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about airspace, which is a great way to review for volume, especially since your test on volume is coming up this week. So have your word wall in front of you, use it to help you do today's assignment, and let's get started. So, what's this concept of airspace? So, let's pretend we have these two solids, right? We have a cylinder and we have a cone that we're going to be dealing with. Now, the question is they each have their own space on the inside. But what would happen if I put the cone on the inside of this cylinder? And then I want to know, well, how much water will actually fit in there, right? So if you can see in that light orange color, we want to know what's that space. It's called airspace that would be left over. And so it's an easy way to find. If you notice, if I want to find the volume of the airspace of whatever's left over inside of that shape, well, I need the outer solid. And then look, simple subtraction is all we have to do. We just need to subtract our two volumes, one from the other, and we will find out how much space is on the inside. Now, if you end up with a negative number, then you may have accidentally switched the outer and the inner. So let's get started. So it says find the volume of each shaded region, round your answer to two decimal places. So here we go. If I look at the outer shape, right? Looking at the outer shape, we're dealing with this rectangular box. That's the bigger shape. And so, as always, when we're trying to figure out a rectangular prism, right, I'm looking at my word wall. The first thing I do is I look at the height. So, right away, I notice that the height is 25 for this one. But then I need to look at my capital B. My capital B is for base, the area of the base. Well, here's the base for that rectangle. I'm using the top because there's one that matches perfectly at the bottom. And look at that. There's the first number, 18. And when I trace this one, I get to use 18 twice. So this is more of a square, technically, even if it doesn't look like it. And we said, according to the word wall, all I have to do is multiply two numbers. Well, my two numbers are 18 and 18. So we're going to bring both of those in there. And we're going to carefully multiply the 18 with the 18, and we get 324. Now we're ready for volume. And remember, when we're doing volume, according to our word wall, all I have to do is multiply my capital B times H. Well, I already know what my capital V is, or B is. I'll put a little O for outside so we don't forget which one the outer is. My capital B is 324. My height was that 25 that we mentioned earlier. And so finally, look, simple multiplication on the calculator. And we get that the volume for that outer solid is 8,100 inches cubed. All right, but there we have our outer figure, right? Now, when I'm looking at the figure on the inside, the inner solid, well, the inner is definitely a cylinder. So I look at my word wall and I look again and I notice, look, from here to here, the height is also 25. So that means it goes from the edge of the box on top to the bottom as well. So my height is 25 again. Now let's talk about capital B. But before we do, remember, according to the capital B, it says it's pi radius to the power of 2. So the first thing I need to have with a cylinder, don't forget, is I actually need a radius. And so if I'm going to look at my picture here, they said the entire thing is 4. Well, we don't need the entire thing. I only want half. I only want that little piece. That's the radius I'm looking for. Well, then it's just a 2. So I just have to remember that my radius is 2. It's the only time we need to do something like this. And we throw the 2 in there. And so just like that, I get my capital B is 4 pi. And look at that, we're ready. I have my H, I have my capital B, I'm ready for volume. According to the word wall, all I have to do is multiply B times H again, because it's just a solid, right? It's not a cone or a pyramid. So then volume is equal to the 4 pi times the 25. And 4 times 25, of course, means that the volume of the inner, right, the inside one, is going to be 100 pi. And no, we don't need to multiply the pi just yet, okay, because this isn't our final answer. So let's not worry about that. Now we're ready to finally do the volume of airspace, or as they wanted, they said, find the volume of the shaded region. So we're going to find the volume of what they called the shaded region. So for the shaded region, the one that's left over, we want to know, well, how much space is left in there? Well, look at the note that we have here. The volume of airspace, right? The volume of the shaded region. So the volume of SH, I'm just going to say, is equal to the volume of the outside minus the volume of the inside. And in the directions, they did say round your answer to 2 decimal places, which clearly means they want me to plug in that pi once I get this thing ready to go. And well, here it is. The volume of the shaded region is the volume of the outside, which is 8,100, minus the volume of the inner, 100 pi. See, now I'm ready for the calculator. And yes, on Desmos, I will type that pi in so that I finally get the end of it all, that the volume of the shaded region, whatever was left over, that airspace, was 7,785 point. Now they said 2 decimal places, so the hundreds, 84. So they want 2 numbers afterwards, inches to the power 3. And just like that, I have my volume of that airspace, aka the space left over once that cylinder is kind of right. Like they took out that little piece of a cylinder out of it. That's how much volume is still left in that box. Now, let's try one more time, 2 different shapes here. And so for this last one here, we're going to do the same thing. Clearly, the box is the bigger one. So the box is what we're going to go with first. And when I'm looking at my box, so here comes the outer again. So the height. Well, let's see. The box is this big right here. Look at that, 29. So the height is 29. All right, easy enough. Well, now I need some numbers for my capital B. And according to the word wall, when it's just a box, all I have to do is multiply 2 numbers, nothing else. Just multiply 2 numbers. Well, for my box, I know it's the same box up here, but look, I have these 2 numbers, a 29 and an 8. Well, 29 and an 8. And all I have to do now is just multiply them together. And 29 times 8 is 232. And this would be inches squared, of course. But now I'm ready for volume. And according to the word wall, the volume of this outer, right, solid, all I have to do is multiply capital B times H. So the outer volume is going to be 232 times the 29 that we had earlier for the height. And just like that, I'm ready. The outer volume is 6,728 inches to the power of 3. All right, so I have my outer volume. Well, now let's talk about the inner. Well, if you look at the inner, now we're dealing with a pyramid, right? They took out a pyramid chunk out of this thing, and that's fine. Whether it's at the top, bottom, it doesn't matter. So then here I go. But when I look at my pyramid, check this one out. This one goes from here and it stops. It doesn't make it all the way down to the bottom. So this number becomes the height of my pyramid. So it's a little bit different than the 29, and that's fine. They just changed it on me. That's okay. And then they said, all right, well, let's look at the base. Now you might say, yeah, but there's no numbers here. Look at this. No numbers anywhere on this base, right? Anywhere on there. No numbers. That's because it's the same numbers as down here. Look, the line that goes side to side is 29. All right, so 29. The line that's slanted this way is 8. Well, those are my 2 numbers again. And if you notice, it's not like I have to do extra work on the calculator. I already have this number. It's 232. So now I'm ready for my volume, but that's why you have to have your word wall in front of you. When you're dealing with a pyramid, the volume of the inside is capital B times H, but because it's a pyramid, we finally divide by 3. And just like that, look, volume is equal to 232. There's the capital B. The H is 27, and I'm going to divide it all by 3. And then, of course, decimals will do the rest for you here. Whoa, for the volume there of the inner solid is 2,088 inches cubed. And now we're finally ready. We want to know what's the airspace, that shaded region. How much is actually left in there? Well, the volume of the shade is equal to the volume of the outer minus the volume of the inner. So in this case, let's see what we get. The outer was 6,728 minus the inside, the inner, 2,088. And just like that, we are done. Once we do the subtraction carefully, 4,640 inches to the power of 3. Now, you're not going to have to do something like this much work on the test on Wednesday, but this is going to prepare you and help you practice all those volume formulas that we talked about last week. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and then I'll see you tomorrow for class.